We've got breaking news, and it's all kinds of bad for the Denver Nuggets, plus the Sacramento Kings. They're putting just about everybody on the trade block, and yes, that includes Keon Ellis. What can they get in return? I'm Trevor Lane. This is the Basketball Bulletin. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. Turn on those notifications as well. Donnie, always a good way to kick off a Sunday with some NBA trade news. I just wish we didn't have this injury news to get into first.
Yeah, for sure, man. It just feels like there's been so many injuries in the early part of the season and the off season. It's like, dude, we're like barely about to be a quarter of the way, not even. And we've seen so much. So that always sucks, but trades are always nice.
Well, so this is the news coming out of Denver. Aaron Gordon sustained a grade 2 right hamstring strain and will be reevaluated in 4 to 6 weeks. So we're not going to see what this effectively means is we will not see Aaron Gordon play basketball again until 2026. He's going to be out the entirety. I mean, technically 4 weeks, but remember, reevaluate does not mean return. So even if he gets reevaluated in 4 weeks, and he's good to go, let's say it's a little bit before Christmas time, and he's good to go at that point, he will still have a ramp-up process. So once again, I would not expect to see Aaron Gordon back on the floor anytime until 2026, especially with a hamstring issue, because those are tricky. They can reoccur. And so this is a big blow for a Nugget side that is already missing Christian Braun. And Donnie, last night, the Nuggets actually lost to the Sacramento Kings. The Kings, who have been struggling themselves, and we're going to talk about them next, about how they're ready to trade everybody and rebuild, and that's who the Nuggets dropped this game to last night. Jokic went nuts, but Aaron Gordon is a huge loss. He's been absolutely fantastic for them, and this could change the balance of power, or at least the playoff seeding in a very tight race in the Western Conference.
Oh, yeah, I have to absolutely just give Gordon his flowers. You know, it's not often that you see a guy that's made it 10 years into his career and then he suddenly learns how to shoot. I mean, he's a career 33% three-point shooter, and then he's been a 44% guy for this season and last season. And I remember last season we were just like, so is this real? And it's still here, right? and he was very clearly their third best or even second best player on most of those nights in the playoffs as well. But this is a recurring injury for him, and hamstrings, calves, these types of things you obviously can't take lightly. So the Nuggets are going to absolutely miss his presence, but he's having a career year this year, right? And they're going to have to try to make it up by committee.
Yeah, certainly not going to be easy. Peyton Watson will have to fill in a bigger role. And look at what we've got going on in the West, Donnie. We have right now, as we're recording this, 4 teams tied in the loss column. OKC obviously running away from the rest of the field, but 4 teams tied in the loss column with 4 losses right now. We know the West is going to be wild. It's going to be a close race, and injuries like this will ultimately be a factor in how the final table looks. Aaron Gordon out 4 to 6 weeks at least. Again, when they are reevaluating, that does not mean return. Big blow for the Denver Nuggets.
Quick, I just want to say you made the we won't see him again until 2026 thing, and that made me have a what's it called, PTSD. I was going to say hot flash, but not quite. Of when
different, Donnie.
Not quite. Of when you get closer to the end of the year and everyone starts making those. Oh, I'll see you in next year, Jones.
Oh,
that's what you made me think of.
I'm sure I will make a few
exactly.
Of
That's where the PTSD comes from. Everyone around me always makes those jokes, and I know I can expect a few from you. We're gonna get close. It's gonna be like, oh, it's coming. See you next year.
It's coming. All right, we need to talk about the Sacramento Kings putting some really intriguing players on the trade block, and the most interesting, it's actually there's Zach LaVine, there's DeMar DeRozan, there's big names, even Sabonis, but the big player that everybody's interested in
Keon.
Is Keon Ellis. And yes, it also includes Russell Westbrook, also potentially a bit. He really was good last night, but we're going to get to that in 1 minute. We'll be right back. Ever hear the Sleeper app? Here's a little secret. It's more than just a platform for season-long fantasy leagues. This year, millions of users enjoyed playing fantasy sports on Sleeper, but the app offers so much more. Live stats, real-time updates, and visualizations on all stats. A news feed, this is so important for me. You can get lightning-fast updates on your favorite players and teams. A real-time chat to allow you to engage with other users about individual plays and performances during the NFL and NBA seasons. So Download the #1 sports app today. Experience it for yourself. When you use promo code Bulletin, you get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. Currently operational in over 25 states. Check out Sleeper today. And by the way, they do have a phenomenal promo going on right now as well. Free $20 entry. Go check that out. No deposit required. $20 entry for free. Go check them out. Use the link in the description down below, and that promo code is Bulletin. All right, everybody, check out Sleeper. They do a fantastic job. I put a few picks together. You can click the link in the description down below. I went with LeBron assists, the Luka Doncic free square, and sticking with that Lakers and Jazz game. Also think Lowry marketed 26.5 points. To me, that's a huge discount. He's been putting up numbers all season long. So that's what I went with. If you want to get in on it, you guys can check it out. Use the link in the description. Use that code Bulletin so they know that you came from us. They also get that free $20 entry. We always appreciate it, guys, when you support the companies that help support us, keep us going, keep us growing. So do us a favor and click that link. All right, Donnie, we got to talk about the Sacramento. Sacramento got the big uplifting win last night, and even so, they are still in the Western Conference, the 12 seed, 4-13, despite the win over the Denver Nuggets, the upset win that has created that 4-team tie in the loss column in the West. But that does not mean that the Kings are suddenly believing that they can go win with this group. In fact, according to Jake Fisher, they are open for business. They are ready to trade anybody on their roster not named Keegan Murray or Nick Clifford. Why is that boo?
Because they need to put Keegan on the market, man. Just get him out there, see what you got. And I mean, don't listen to me. I'm dealing with menopause. So
Donnie and his hot flashes. No, look.
I'm messing around. They should keep Keegan.
I agree. They should keep Keegan Murray, Nick Clifford, a guy that I like too. But word is new general manager. This is the great news, honestly. This is great news right here for Kings fans. Word is new general manager Scott Perry realistically understands he has to undertake a multi-year rebuild as opposed to trying to cobble together a plucky playoff-worthy squad from the ashes of Sacramento's team. Hallelujah.
Thank you.
That is what they need. 100%. They need to be realistic. Stop trying to cobble together pieces and make something work just to squeak in and be the 9 seed or something like that going into the play-in tournament. This Sacramento team needs to rebuild. And so now they are putting everybody out there on the trade market and expect to hear a lot of Zach LaVine, DeMar DeRozan, Domantas Sabonis, as well as Keon, Ellis, who has the most interest of any of those players. Does that surprise you at all, Donnie, that we've got big names like LaVine, DeRozan, and Sabonis, and it's Keon Ellis that is generating the most interest?
I mean, Keon is a guy that I think is the most plug and play out of all those guys. He's not going to be a high usage guy, not expected to be a high minutes guy, high volume guy, any of that stuff. He is just going to come in and play his role. And I think that teams really value that. And a lot of teams can really use that. And, if you're a guy like that, then there's more opportunity around the NBA for you, because it's a little bit harder to say, I'm going to trade for a Sabonis, because you're going to have to give up so much for him and then integrate him heavily into what you're doing, right? With Keon, you could just grab this guy and just go.
And they haven't been using him as much. In fact, he was a DNP coach's decision last night in the win over the Nuggets, which raised some eyebrows. I saw the chatter on social media, people saying, does this mean something's happening? Rare for trades to happen this time of year, by the way, but not impossible, especially when his salary is so low. But when you look at what the Kings have from a salary perspective, it's way easier to trade for a Keon Ellis than it is any of those other guys.
And that's the most important thing too.
Right. So Keon Ellis, $2.3 million is extension eligible, but $2.3 million for Keon Ellis this season compared to 47, let's call it 48 million for Zach LaVine, Sabonis, 42 million, DeRozan, 20, let's call it 25 million, Malik Monk, almost 19 million. But all of these guys, Dennis Schroeder, hell, Donnie, I mean, he is what, 4.3 million guaranteed on the final year of his contract. Some team could pick him up. There's a lot of teams that need point guards right now. You could do far worse than Dennis Schroeder. Even Russell Westbrook at just 2.2 million, he's that veteran minimum. He could be available as well to trade for. So there's some interesting. The Kings are not good, but there's some interesting players here that they're putting on the market that should generate buzz. I don't know how much interest, though, there will actually be in their three big names, and those are the three guys they'd like to move on from the most: LaVine, Sabonis, and DeRozan.
Yeah, they may have to be okay with taking less, maybe not getting the draft capital they would want or as much like blue chip guys as they would expect or anything like that. You may have to sell a bit low on them because I don't think you're going to get back any sort of big haul or return, especially with Sabonis also dealing with that injury too. That's another this that I think really can cause an issue. But, I think for them, they would love to do that, but I don't think there's a humongous rush. They don't have to do it now. I mean, hell, they want to be bad. I mean, they don't want to be bad, I guess. But anyway, they're losing regardless. So they got their pick. So they're good either way.
They don't need to get players off their roster in order to tank, is what you're saying.
Not a huge rush and anything like that. They can figure this stuff out over time. They've got, several years left on most of these deals, and they can figure it out. And maybe if you get closer to the last year of a LaVine, he's easier and more palatable for a team to take on or something like that. And I don't want to say it like that because he's been lights out, man. He's so good.
They've moved him. He has been not always closing games. Yeah. They've moved him around in the rotation. So there is some concern there on the LaVine side. Now, what's interesting,
they're just trying to throw darts at a wall, though. They're just trying to figure out what works.
They're just trying to figure out some way to get a win. The problem they've got with Sabonis, I'll touch upon this real quick, is that essentially it's a Western Conference executive said it's tough to pay a center that much that doesn't protect the rim and doesn't shoot threes, no matter how great of an offensive hub he can be. That's it exactly, right? That's the problem they're going to have with trying to move Sabonis. LaVine, interesting here is that there was an offseason push from LaVine's side to interest Atlanta in a swap that would have landed Trae Young with the Kings. So a Zach LaVine for Trae Young trade. And the Kings were not interested in doing something like that now.
The Kings weren't interested in doing that?
Why? Apparently.
For what reason?
Monty McNair, when he was running Sacramento's front office, they were interested in De'Aaron Fox for Trae Young. But I've heard strongly, this is Jake Fisher, that Perry does not intend to pursue Young, Ball, or Morant. None of the league guards is known for the sort of defensive toughness that the Kings' new regime has made will be a priority. So that was something that there was interest in from the Zach LaVine camp about getting him to Atlanta. So he also kind of wants out, with Fisher also noting that what it may take for Zach LaVine to have trade value is him actually declining his player option. That if he declines his player option, and I don't know if you're Zach LaVine, if you should do that, but if he declines that player option, that will give him trade value around the NBA. 47.5 million, 48, almost 49 million on the books next year. If he declines that with an eye towards doing a longer term but smaller salary, then that will make him more trade worthy on the market.
Yeah, that is something that could be a factor for him for sure. We talk about several of these guys. All these guys, if you trade for them, they're going to wind up looking for extensions pretty soon because they're going to be extension eligible. Keon, actually, if you trade for him, you're going to have to pay him like flat out. Yeah. And he's going to balloon. He's going to make like at least probably 6 times that amount. Like he's going to balloon, I think.
I mean, he's only at $2 million right
exactly. Now. Like he's going to balloon a good bit. Nothing crazy, right? But he's going to go up. All these guys are going to want extension. So I think that could be a factor for sure with Zach. I was really curious about that because you were saying like the Kings didn't want it, but it makes sense in the context that they want to have more of a defensive guard in there or have a guard that can play on both ends better. And so, yeah, that makes more sense in that regard. But for Atlanta, I would have thought they would have been the ones more so out on it, but really, I don't know where they stand with Trae anyway. We've talked about that a bit. So.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about Keon Ellis, who is, if you're a Lakers fan and you're watching this, we've talked about Keon Ellis a ton because he fits in so many places. Can shoot the three a bit, can defend at a high level. He's a bit foul prone, but
do you know his career 3-point average, by the way?
I don't.
Percentage?
What is it?
43%.
Oh my God, that's better
than you would think. Exactly, he's lights. And so like he's had a couple years where he's played less due to injury, etc.
Yep.
He's also had some situations where the volume wasn't so high, but he's on 3.5 attempts per game at 43%.
Man,
like
and this is why even at just over $2 million, that we're going to be, according to Jake Fisher, there's going to be a lot of buzz about Ellis between now and February 5th, which is the trade deadline. He could certainly factor into the Kings' long-time future, but he could also fetch a first-round pick if Sacramento opts to move him before the trade deadline. So there it is right there. What is the price for Keon Ellis? It is a first-round pick, which is interesting considering that they're not even really playing him much. But I think other teams see the value in him that maybe Sacramento either doesn't, or he's not somebody they want to put on the floor as much right now. But if Sacramento could get a first-round pick for a guy that they're not using that much, I think they should seriously consider that.
You know what it is they're trying to keep him on bubble wrap.
They just don't want him getting hurt.
Yeah, they're sneakily trying to just like, okay, we'll use you this game, we won't use you that game, because they know he's their most valuable trade market player or asset, right? Because the other guys just, I don't think they're pulling back actual first round picks, things like that. So
you think with like Sabonis, LaVine, despite them being much bigger names than Keon Ellis, you think they're more like protected picks and the like that would be in a deal?
Because of several factors, but most importantly it's the salary, right? And I think the fit concerns with, like you mentioned earlier, Sabonis, we've said several times, I think you need a very specific team around Sabonis.
All three, you could say that about, really.
Exactly. Like, and then also DeRozan's already 36, so like he's certainly not getting back a first. I don't think. If it is, it's a heavily protected fake one. LaVine is the bit of the dark horse here. Like, I'm not really sure. Maybe he could get one, but that's mostly it.
If LaVine were to decline the player option and be open to doing a longer term deal wherever he goes, that is 30 million a season, 25 million, something like if he would do 3 years, 75 million on an extension, something like that, right? Like that would make him much more valuable, I think.
Does he look at like players around? For example, does he look like the Reeves contract and say, oof, Reeves getting 35?
Yeah, I think he would look at Reeves. He would look at, and he's not, Zach LaVine isn't young, but he's also 30. He's not 35. He's not 36 like DeRozan.
He's right on the bubble.
Right. So he's going to be a fascinating one to see ultimately where he lands contract wise. But the other side of that is, if you're Zach LaVine, do you just say, well, no, I don't want to take like 30, 35 million a season. I'm supposed to get almost 50 next year. Just give me my 50 and then I'll get a new contract. And then after that, I'll take my 30 million or 35 million or whatever it comes in at.
That's fair.
That's something that that's going to be up to him to decide how bad does he want out of Sacramento, because it sounds like declining that player option might be a big deal for him in doing that. Because again, teams, that's the other piece, right? Not only is it difficult to trade for these salaries, you'd have to find a team that wants to give up stuff in order to be the team to pay Zach LaVine $50 million next year. That's where it's going to be hard, despite how well he shot the ball.
Yeah, absolutely. Is LaVine kind of, he's in a weird spot for me personally, because we've talked a lot about these guys being on the market and then having depressed value because of the injuries and all that stuff. And LaVine isn't too far removed from an injury, but his last in Chicago, he's always had on and off seasons where he's dealing with this, dealing with that, or he's healthy for a stretch and things like that. So I do wonder if that isn't a factor for him too. Like maybe he's just a little bit too young to have the long-term approach to it at like 30, right? But I can't help but imagine that if he was like 32 or 3 right now, he would be more open to considering the decline and extend for a longer period because of the history that he does have with that.
Right. Yeah. If you're Zach LaVine and you can lock in, I don't know, what if it's 100 million and you can lock in at a lower per year level, or you're getting 50 million for sure next year. That there is, even when it's over 4 years or 3 years or whatever, like that's a lot of money to turn back. And I don't know exactly what his market will be on an extension, but that's still, hey, you can definitely get 50 million next year, or we can make sure no matter what happens, you twist your knee around and the kneecap's on the wrong side of your leg. Like, gosh, who was that did that? The Clippers player, Livingston.
Oh my God.
Remember that?
Oh my God.
Oh man. Anyway, you do some horrible injury.
Horrific.
Knock on wood that it never actually happens, but you got yourself protected. Now you're getting 125 million, something locked in at a lower per year number. I don't know. Zach LaVine's also made a lot of money already over his NBA career, so that may not be a bigger concern. He may say, you know what, my lifestyle's not going to change all that much if I take 50 million now versus 125 million total. I can roll the dice. We'll see.
I think the gamble would be I lock in that deal and I come out, put up my numbers, or maybe I contribute to a winning team, whatever, but I'm mostly healthy throughout the season. And then at that point, I could lock in that salary or more the following season.
Right. And for him, I would assume it would be about location, getting to the right spot.
Yeah, that too. That's another piece. Maybe that is why he would decline this in the first place. Maybe he just says, you know what? I'm tired of like being bounced around all these places. I want to go somewhere of my own choice and see what happens. I don't know.
Yeah. We'll see. All right. Sabonis, DeRozan, LaVine, very much available, but Dennis Schroeder, Russell Westbrook, he's actually played pretty well.
We didn't really talk about those guys
this season. Yeah, Russ has played well. Devin Carter is a young player who's very much available. Donnie, I think what all of this essentially says is that the Sacramento Kings are now being set up to be a major pivot point for this year's trade deadline, this year's trade season. They are going to be, I think, one of the teams right in the thick of things because they're a team that's a clear seller. There's a number of interesting players that are on the market. Some big names, but also some guys who I think could really help some teams that are pretty affordable. You know, if you want to go get one of the best backup point guards in the NBA in Dennis Schroeder, you can go get him, right? With Sacramento. If you need a defensive piece, you could go get a Keon Ellis. So I do think there's some interesting options here on this Sacramento roster, despite them not being very good. And this is going to make them one of the most important teams now heading into the February 5th trade deadline.
Yeah, for sure. Just like I said, we didn't really talk a ton about some of those other guys, but just really quick, DeRozan, Monk, Schroeder, we'll throw Westbrook in there. Out of those guys, which do you think has the most value? Because those are guys that I think are very specific fits. Yeah. Well, except for the fact that I think DeRozan, you can also kind of plug and play if he's willing to take a lesser role anyway.
The problem is the long-term salary with each of them.
Yeah.
And that's the challenge. Like that's what the drawback with Malik Monk. That's the drawback with even DeRozan, who's got, I think, like 10 plus million guaranteed for next year on that deal.
So you're saying Russ.
I kind of lean Russ just because of the flexibility. I don't know. I'm going back and forth between Russ and Schroeder, and I know Russ took over the starting job, but just because of the flexibility, it makes it so easy to just say 1 year, hey, if this works, great. And if it doesn't, see you later. You know, that there's a lot more flexibility than I'm going to take on money into the future with Monk, Schroeder, and DeRozan. Yeah. Even if you can argue for those guys or against those guys without the contracts involved, I don't look at any of those guys and say that's a guy I really want to be in on long term. I think the guy I'd be most interested in taking on his deal would be Dennis Schroeder. But I think ultimately for all of them, I would rather go with the guy that expires.
Yeah, I think most people would say Malik Monk. But like we've said before, I just wonder if the NBA isn't moving away from that archetype of player where it's the small scoring guard. Now, that doesn't mean he can't be successful, but you need, very specific things around those players. And it's kind of hard if you want to be a really serious team to have that entry point constantly on the court to your defense where there's a guy that they can literally pinpoint and point at and target every single possession down, right? That player has to be able to put up a lot on the other end to really make up for it. And I think Malik can do that. But that salary for those years, I think that's questionable. And if a team is trading for any of these guys, the reason I brought this up just in general, and this is why back to Ellis, because I mean, it's the same argument you were making for Russ. You have a lot of flexibility there. You would extend Ellis, right? But he still isn't going to get the money that some of these guys are making. But the reason why teams would maybe balk at a trade for some of these guys, these top five guys, basically, is the fact that they'd be on their books for a long period of time, and you'd have to really be sure of what you're getting. You need to make sure that you're probably a contending team, because I don't see any other teams really being interested in any of these guys for the most part because of the salary and maybe the age. But you got to be a contending team and be sure that these teams, or teams that are close to contention anyway, but be sure that these guys are the right guys for what you're doing and how they fit into what your salary structure is. So I think that's a very interesting thing that they have to work out.
And that's exactly why I have Schroeder ahead of Malik Monk. It's because of that. He's got 30-ish million guaranteed total on his deal. Malik Monk is almost double that. when
he's
you add
pulling
up
that player option too, I think.
he's taking that player option. Yeah, exactly. 21.5 million. And if I'm a team, I don't want to be in a spot where a guy's got a player option sitting at the end of the deal. So anyway, look, some intriguing players that are going to be out there with Sacramento Kings. Bravo, Sacramento. I'm happy for Kings fans that they are recognizing Scott Perry, recognizing this is not working despite the win over the Denver Nuggets. This is not working. We need to blow this thing up, and we're going to be major sellers on the market. Let's get all the assets we possibly can. Let's burn this thing down and build it back up around Keegan Murray, Nick Clifford. I think Keon Ellis should be in that group. I am a fan of his game, but if they do want to move him, there's going to be a lot of interest in him as well. So big news out of Sacramento. Big news, unfortunately, out of Denver also with the Aaron Gordon injury. But everybody, we'll be back later today to talk a little bit about LaMelo Ball, an update on his trade front, plus Lauri Markkanen as well. A couple other big names that could be appearing on the market ahead of that February 5th trade deadline. So be on the lookout for that. Appreciate all of you for joining us here today. Please make sure you do subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so yet. Till next time, everybody. See ya and stay safe.